I'm going to talk about a personal story today, so bear with me. My dad had his gallbladder removed in 2016. It was the year that the Cubs won the World Series, so it was a big year in Chicago, and my dad was an avid sports fan. That's my dad. He loved the Chicago Cubs, and growing up, we had them on the TV or on a transistor radio if he was outside all the time. He was always listening to the Cubs, and he was also a huge Bears fan. For those of you who don't know, I'm from Chicago originally. So one of my fondest memories of my dad was when I was 18 years old. As most of you know, an 18-year-old young woman and a dad don't necessarily always get along so well. But he somehow got 2 tickets to the Bears game. It was the final playoff game before the Bears won the Super Bowl. So the 1985 Chicago Bears. I know most of you may not know, but that was, Jim McMahon. It was Mike Singletary. It was the Fridge. It was like an awesome team. And so he asked, would you, what should I do with the ticket, the second ticket I got? And my mom and I were like, well, you got to ask Mike. That's my older brother. Long story short, he called my brother. I started crying. He's like, I got to call you back. What are you doing? And I said, I want to go to the game. And it's one of my fondest memories with my dad is attending that game with him. So after my dad had his gallbladder removed in 2016, he went to follow up with his surgeon, and he found out that he had gallbladder cancer, which was not on his radar at all. We thought it was sort of a routine thing. And gallbladder cancer, it has quite a high mortality rate. He was 89 years old, and it's pretty rare. At the time, they felt they had gotten everything, so he chose not to get any kind of treatment, and we went on with life. So I received a call one night that he went to the emergency room because he was having abdominal pain. And they did a CAT scan, and they found a mass on his liver that they were sort of assuming was the spread from this gallbladder cancer. I was in New York. He was in Chicago. I called my mom, and I said, I will be there on the first flight in the morning. He didn't know I was coming. So I arrived the next day, and he was so happy to see me. I've always been his biggest advocate anytime, when I lived in Chicago, anytime there was any health concerns, probably as many of you are to your families. So he was happy that I walked in the door. But it was the next thing he told me that I'm here to talk about today. He said, I was down in the emergency room last night. It was kind of an interesting experience. And I said, well, tell me about it. And he said, well, first of all, there were some very important people here last night. And I'm like, this was a hospital similar to Peconic Bay Medical Center. It was called Northern Illinois Medical Center. And I'm like, who in the heck is so important that's in this hospital? And I'm like, why do you think there was somebody so important here, Dad? And he said, well, he told me that there were other people that would have a priority over me to get a bed. And in his mind, that meant they were more important than him, not that they were necessarily sicker than him. So we sometimes have to be careful of the words we choose. Then he went on to tell me about how when he was sitting down there, a nurse came in, his nurse, and they got to talking. At that moment, he was really facing his mortality. He knew this was not good news. And so he told the nurse his life story about how he was born in the United States. He went to Germany in 1939 with his family. He was in a prisoner of war camp. He was released and came back to the United States and met my mom on the boat. And he went on to live a really wonderful life and raise 4 kids. Then he said to me, the nurse started to cry. And he said, she really cared. So, my biggest regret out of all of this, my dad died a few months later in 2017. And I don't regret any of my time with him at the end. But my biggest regret is that I never wrote a letter to that hospital. And I never said thank you to that nurse for being there for my dad, for seeing him and hearing his story when I couldn't be. And I guess today is sort of a tribute to that nurse, somebody in my profession and many of our professions who do things every single day to be there for our patients at a very difficult time. And what I ask of you is just don't ever forget the impact that by asking a patient to tell you more will have on them and on their family, because I will never forget her. So thank you.
My father is the heart of our family. Let me tell you more about my father, Louis. Louis drove big trucks and school buses for a living. He loves his home in Riverhead and especially loves mowing his lawn. He enjoys a good Western film, and he is an artist with passion for drawing. He has a caring wife and 2 affectionate children who live in Ohio. My dad is always the best dressed person in the room, and he is proud of it. His faith brings him much strength. He is caring and loving, but most importantly of all, my father is deeply loved by his friends and family. My father received tremendous clinical care while at the Peconic Bay Medical Center. He was cared by so many people. I would like to personally thank each and every one of you, not only for the care to my dad at that time, but the care to our family as well, for checking in on my father during his stay, taking time to talk with him, getting to know him, the positive conversations with my brother, my stepmother Doris, and myself, which drastically changed this frightening experience. It matters not just what you do, but sometimes more importantly, how you do it. God bless each and every one of you. The daughter of Louis Dacus, Linda Parks.